sometimes I even impress myself about my own craziness. What the fuck? Oh man. Whatever. Put that one here. I will put that one here. Is this my? Okay. All right. All right. I'm just setting things up. Sup, SARS, Asian Movement, good evening. I know I'm probably, I don't know if you guys can hear me right now. Hold on a second, hold on a second, hold on. Hold on. Hold on, everyone. Hold on. Hold on. Check your audio. How's my audio now? Yatch. SAR checking in. Enlightened leader. What's enlightened leader? Checking in SAR. He seems to be in Zen-like focus. I am focused. I am audio. There we go. Audio is better. So I didn't realize stupid freaking delivery people. So I live in like in you know one of those apartment complexes. Like I don't know if you guys know what LA is like. For those of you who don't know what LA is like, there's a lot of apartment complexes. They're like these 2-story, you know, not that, you know, these buildings were probably built, I'm guessing in like the 1950s or some shit. You know, not very modern buildings or anything like that. Anyway, they have like a gate and that's everything, you know, that opens or whatever. And typically I put the stuff on my order, like as to how to get in and all this other stuff. And, you know, on the, you know, whatever the delivery sort of extra instructions are, you know, so that they leave it at my front door instead of me having to meet them out at the gate to get my food. But then, for whatever reason, the delivery person just leaves it outside on the gate, whatever door, and then it shows up on my thing as delivered. The app is like kind of like not really clear about what the fuck is going on. And finally, I would like go outside to the gate, and it's right outside the door gate. And I'm like, God fucking damn it! So that was why I'm 10 minutes late. Oh, yes, I'm starting off with some retarded commentary about food delivery. I always try to optimize too, you know, because this place, it's not the cheapest place, but you know, it has pretty good stuff. But anyway, if you order it, maybe that's the reason why, because I didn't order on an Uber. Because if you order on an Uber, it's a lot more expensive because there's all these fucking, like, hidden fees that Uber charges and all this fucking bullshit. So I use this other, like, less, like, prominent app because it's, like, a Italian place. So it uses this app called Slice. And I've had problems with this app before. This wasn't the first time I've had delivery problems. So maybe that's a little bit on me for not realizing that. But yes, if you want to see what I ordered, this is chicken parmesan, penne pasta. I have salads, not really that interesting to just salad with Italian dressing. I don't know. Is this how mukbang works? I gotta show the audience. Gotta show the audience what I'm eating. Oh man. Oh man. I think I like it when I'm just like kind of not really like, oh no, I need to talk about something. You know, I gotta talk about something politically, geopolitically going on in the beginning, whatever. Checking in SAR, what's up? Holy cow. No. But really, you know, this is like a shitpost stream, you know, like, you know, everyone's like, it's pretty much mirrors what I am on Twitter, right? I shitpost all the time on Twitter. I shitpost on stream. North Korean gotta eat. Exactly. I think this is... I forgot who's who. But I think this is Kim Il-sung, and I think this is Kim Jong-il. Somebody look that up. See if I'm right. The one with the arm raised, I think that's probably Kim Il-sung. Donald Sterling was one of the largest residential landlords in Los Angeles. A star person, yes. He used to own the Clippers until he got caught for using the N-word. Yeah, well, you know. You know, so my title, the title of this thing, the Goyim must remain asleep. So there was this political commentator, mostly on the left. Like, he's not like, you know, like a Nick Fuentes or one of those MAGA people or whatever. I don't know her exact kind of like politics, really. God damn it. Stabilize. This is the problem with this thing. Like, I don't want it to fucking move around. What's up, real NYLP? Sorry, I'm going to be eating. I haven't eaten all day because I've been writing. It's funny enough, the title of my Substack that I'm writing right now was Philosophy of Jeedism. So, it actually talks about Kash Patel in the beginning. And how he is a Tsar, you know. Do you think... Oh, somebody on Twitch asks, do you think Heath Ledger's Joker was written a bit weak? I don't know really what that has to do with anything, but I think it was actually written pretty excellently, you know. It was one of the most iconic performances of all time. I don't think you could do that if it's written poorly, right? Of course, how much of that was Christopher Nolan's doing, or how much of that was Heath Ledger's own invention, who knows, right? It's reported that Ledger kind of went a little bit insane himself, getting into the character of Joker, and that's what led to his suicide, apparently. Or that's what most people think or believe. So maybe a lot of that did come from Ledger himself, but either way, I don't think it was weak. It was one of the most iconic performances in film history. Anyhow, I found out if you wear that shirt in South Korea, you'd be detained as a spy. Is that actually true, though? I feel like if I wore that shirt in South Korea, you know, being that I'm American, they might deport me, but I don't think they would, like... Oh, I guess that would be detained. I don't think they would actually imprison me, because that would cause a lot more chaos than they would actually want. They would just try to silently deport me. Because somewhat, I joke about this all the time. Some people think I'm this big public figure or something. I'm like a nobody, right? But I think I'm a public enough figure where if they actually jailed me for wearing this shirt, that would cause more of like a Streisand effect for them that they would want to avoid. They wouldn't actually think I'm a spy, obviously, because, like... I don't know why this fucking thing keeps moving. Anyway. Who knows? It's not like I'm going back to South Korea anytime soon. I have really no interest in... I have no real interest in going to South Korea, to be honest. Like, You know, hold on. Let me put this up here. Yeah. Like, what is the... There's really nothing for me there. Like, now that I think about it. Because what does it have that America doesn't already have? LA has pretty good Korean food. So if I wanted Korean food, I'd get it there, right? If I want to be murdered by a Korean catfish, you know, dating online, maybe I can get that there. But I feel like not dying, you know? You guys hear about that story? About this. There was this Korean woman, apparently, who was like 22 years old, and they, apparently what she was doing was she was matching with people on this dating website or whatever, and then she would feed them with a bunch of, like, I guess, drugs and alcohol. And the first time, the guy didn't die, so they didn't do anything about it. But then, like, apparently she was researching that shit on, like, you know, whatever, and it was like, oh, I gotta up the dosage to actually kill the guy. And then she killed, like, 2 guys or whatever that she was dating. And then, yeah, of course, retarded Westerners are like, oh, go girl, there's feminism for you. You know? There's all these Westerners with their retarded fucking Western opinions. Everyone's talking about Asians now. You know, there was a whole fucking thing about Wasians, you know, because of the Olympics. Eileen Gu, Alyssa Liu. Who's better? Who's more patriotic? Who's like a test tube bait? All this fucking nonsense. And then it comes back to this fucking retarded Asian women with WMA mind virus who are kind of like, you know, talking about how much they love sucking white dick on like fucking literature. And then the conversation just becomes, oh yeah. You know, you have these like fucking Hoppa twinks being like, yeah, we suck. You know, we have no culture. It's like, yeah, maybe if you took your fucking, that fucking white cock out of your mouth and, you know, this is fucking twink saying all this fucking self-hating shit. And then, yeah, everyone has this opinion, or stupid fucking white opinions, about what Asians are, Asian Americans are, what Asian Americans aren't. You know, and it reminds me a lot of Homo Fagalist's fucking comments over the past year about China. You know? Everyone's got a fucking opinion. No one ever asks Asians about, no one asks Asian men about their opinion about all this. They just, you know, make up their own fucking shit based on fucking weeb anime shit or whatever they see from China or the fucking Olympics or these fucking WMA mind virus freaks. And they're like, that's Asian. That's Asian American. And then when you try to say, like, that's not us. It's like, no, we know. We know better than you Asians what you are. It's like, shut the fuck up. Just so fucking tired, you know? Tired of white leftists. Tired of fucking goycattle leftists. Goycattle Nazis. Goycattle Trotskyites. Goycattle everywhere, you know? Even the pro-China Marxists in America. They're all fucking goycattle. They're all like saying all this shit about what China or Asian people are or whatever. They never bother to ask an actual Asian Marxist Leninist, what they think about all you fucking retards, you know? That's what Western chauvinism is, you know? They always assume that whatever they've looked into, you know, with their fucking Western sources, you know, that's why most people are still retarded about North Korea, you know? Retards saying, like, oh, Kim Jong-un's going to nuke Israel. And, like, what are you fucking talking about? What benefit would it ever be for North Korea to nuke Israel? Like, why would they sacrifice everything that they fucking built and sustained for the past 80 years for your fucking goycattle fantasies, you know? It's like they never... It's like every fucking Westerner, every fucking white person, regardless of their fucking political orientation, I swear to God, they're all fucking pieces of shit, narcissists, Western chauvinists. They have no actual consideration for what the Asian interest is. They all see us as fucking robots and fucking soulless bugmen. Whether they're on the right, at least the right is honest about it, you know? At least the fucking Nazi goycattle, they hate us, they think we're this, and they're honest about it. I'm like, okay. It's like Malcolm X said, okay, I appreciate it. I appreciate knowing where you stand. But these fucking goycattle leftists or Marxists or whatever the fuck, they're all fucking bunch of flaming fucking, you know, goycattle. You know, they can't see outside of a paradigm where their opinions actually don't fucking matter. They have to have an opinion. Their opinion has to matter. Especially when it comes to non-white people. Especially how it comes to, like, the evaluation of who we think we are. You know? Whether it be China, whether it be South Korea, whether it be, you know, another kind of fucking... whoever you're, like, even if it's China or Vietnam, whatever the fuck it is, they always have their stupid fucking white opinions, you know? They're usually fucking wrong, too. They have no fucking sense of dialectics. They only can get around the appearance of the thing without seeing the development of the thing itself, you know? They are always so focused on the form, and they are so uninterested in the content. Which is why their opinions are devoid of any fucking content at all. It's all just retarded nonsense. Let's see. Is South Korea's NSA strictly enforced? I don't think it's uniform. I think there's a lot of considerations with that. It's like, well, A, are you a South Korean citizen or are you an American citizen, right? Or are you a different nationality, right? Different strokes for different folks, you know? I don't think it's like uniformly applied. And I think it definitely laxed a lot ever since fall of the Soviet Union. For example, I think prior to 1991, it wasn't just a ban of like North Korea. It was a ban of all Marxist Leninist literature. Nowadays, so I found this kind of like because I was, I wanted to get Korean texts about Marxism, Leninism, and, share that with my parents, right? So I first looked on like Marxist.org, right? Because I figured, North Korea, it would have translated, it would have translated all the Marxist texts, right? Like imperialism, Lenin, Marx, all this stuff, because it wants its own citizens to know what it is. So I thought there was going to be because like, how Marxist.org, they have like English, French, Espanol, all these languages. But it curiously doesn't have fucking Korean. It's very strange. I was told that Marxist.org is somewhat of a Trotskyiite website. And I kind of see why. So then, on the other side, I was like, okay. Well, let me look online and see if there's any translations online on the Korean bookstores online. So I found some, and then I bought them, and then I gave them to my parent, or my dad. My mom doesn't want to read anything. My dad's somewhat intellectually curious, and so he's like reading some of the stuff that I give him. But he tells me, I don't know if he's lying or not, or if he's lazy, but he's telling me like the translations are never good, they're never clear, and it's like kind of like, I think there's probably an element of truth to that. Probably like one side, if he really wanted to, he would probably like just read it. But I do suspect that the translations aren't by anyone particularly skilled or motivated, right? Just trying to like sell books, right? Just trying to sell any sort of content. Because, all Marxist, there's no copyright on that shit. So I'm sure like some Korean publisher after the ban was lifted was like, oh, what if we just sell this fucking shit? This slop. People have some interest in it. And we can just sell fucking slop. Don't have to put that much effort into it. Heaven knows our government doesn't want us to put that much effort into it. So it's probably an element of truth to that. But it's interesting because, like, even though the ban on Marxist and Leninist texts were lifted, the ban on anything about Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, or Kim Jong-un, or anything positive about the PRK is still banned. That's why when you go to, or when you watch Squid Games, right, there's that North Korean defector, right? There's a scene where it's the Ganbu episode where she's like with that other chick, and they're playing Ganbu, and they're talking about North Korea, and she was like, oh, why'd you come to South Korea? And she was like, oh, I was looking here for a better life and all this other stuff. And then, it was ironic because they finding themselves in a Squid Game, right? It's like, well, and then so, that's the irony of the scene. And the girl asks her, well, what did you find here? And of course, the Korean censors being the way that they are, she can't actually say, well, this place sucks a lot more, She can't say that out loud. But the subtext behind that scene, we all know what it means, right? It's like, I'm in a fucking Squid Game for my life. What do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this is improvement? But yeah, obviously, in terms of actual media, the NSA, the National Security Act, is held in place, but I think as an American, as a Korean American, You can get away with some stuff publicly. But yeah, once you're on their radar, they just don't allow you in the country. I know that there are some pro DPRK people. Not even like fully pro DPRK, just like, you know, like they're not even like the most adamant like Kim Il Sung must take over tomorrow or something. They're just like, hey, maybe we should improve relations, you know? Or people that just like kind of obviously disapprove of American military presence in South Korea, right? Because even then, it's just kind of like, what? We all know that in a one-on-one fight, South Korea and North Korea today, North Korea ain't invading, right? Because they would just get murked by conventional weapons. So there's no actual need for the American military to be there, especially not since, like, basically for the past 20 years or so. South Korea could hold their own against the North militarily. So, but even like pointing that out, obviously, it's not, you know. Let's see. But yeah. I saw someone blame North Korea for Israel's atrocities on the timeline. Max Goyslop today. How would that logic even fucking work? Like, how is North Korea, like, the amount of this is how retarded white people are, right? Like, how retarded do you have to be to actually put that idea into the ether and not have it immediately be fucking negated, but actually, like, entertained by a bunch of other retarded white people or Westerners, right? And they're always so fucking confident, you know? They're always so fucking confident. Whoever fucking is, it can be your fucking retard leftist, your retard rightist, your retard homophagalists, you know? Doesn't matter who it is. They're all fucking retarded. You know? I don't know. Maybe there is no hope. Maybe there is no hope for America, guys. All we can do is prepare. Prepare for the coming tide. You know? Batten the hatches. It's kind of like China, right? China's position ever since, you know, they made diplomacy with the West and the United States in the 1970s, right? Maybe it's like, let's just get along. You know? Let's just get along. Let's cooperate. But just in case, we need to get a backup plan, right? You know, Deng Xiaoping was like, yeah, we're going to stop this social imperialism shit. Stop like trying to, you know, spread communism to Malaysia or Indonesia or all these other places. We're done with all that, right? So we don't need as big of a military. So they look like to the United States, hey, we're laying down our guns. See, we don't have that big of an army anymore. But in the meantime, he's like, well, let's also open up to Israel. Because those motherfuckers don't care about shit but themselves, and they're selling American weapons for money. You know? And they're like, okay, now we can reverse engineer these American-made weapons and make our military much more technologically advanced. So although we greatly reduced our personnel, not only did we free up a lot of those guys to boost our economy and have them do productive labor in the commodity production, but we made our military much more advanced, technologically advanced. Now we can hang if the Americans do try it. So in the same way, it's like maybe, like for me, it's like, okay, I'll try to cooperate with Western Marxist-Leninists. You know, I'll be making more media, I'm writing more shit, I'm writing more theory. But in the meantime, I gotta figure out plan Bs, for myself. Shit really hits a fan. We out, I hear all this talk about how immigrants aren't patriotic, and immigrants only came here to use America's resources and get rich. And, especially with the whole fucking Eileen Gu bullshit. Like, she used America's shit, America's resources, and competed for China. Well, the real purpose behind that is to allow much more anti-Asian racism. Now that we're preparing for war with China, now that the fucking media slop, they didn't make more goy slop, right? So they forget about all the Epstein file bullshit. Be like, you know what? You can't really do anything about that. But what you can do is hate on Asian people for coming into your place and coming here to make money that they didn't even build, right? The whole fucking thing with China. We built China. Our money built China. As if, they deserve all the fucking credit, Well, to that, I say, I don't know you fucking shit. Yeah. You know what? I went out there. I took your fucking boomer money, in the World Series of Poker. What, am I supposed to feel fucking bad about that? Old ass fucking retards with a lot of money at the World Series? I just fucking took all your fucking capital. What, am I supposed to be like, oh, I should feel patriotic and stay in this fucking country that hated my entire existence my entire life? Fuck that. I'll try to help y'all. Get out of the fucking goy slop matrix. But if it's too late for America, why should I stay? Why should I stay and fight for this fucking country? As if all the other fucking groups that came here didn't come here for money. Oh, the fucking Puritans came here for religious freedom? Yeah, and then they fucking killed and annihilated all the Native Americans after they helped them, after, trying to set, like, hey, the Native Americans were friendly at first, right? They were like, hey, they're trying to help you, like, catch fish. This is how you live here. And then they fucking tried to, they're like, well, this land's ours now, so fuck off. And the natives obviously didn't like that very much. So they were like, okay, we have to kill y'all, motherfuckers. We have to make smallpox blankets. They realized that the natives were dying from smallpox. So they actually made blankets, and they coughed that smallpox into that shit and deliberately gave them that shit. Didn't know that, did you? I had enough wherewithal to know enough about biology to use that as biological warfare back in the 1700s. And so they tell us, we came here. Our blood was spilt to build this country. Our blood was spilt to defend this country. This country has just been a fucking pirate ship from day one. You didn't build it, right? The economic basis for this country, when they came to America in the 1600s, the English colonies, they came here primarily to grow crops for trade, right? That was how England got a lot of its economic power in the beginning. They needed, the cotton, the tobacco, the fucking whatever it is, sugar, all this fucking shit. That's what was generating the economy of the Americas in the beginning. And while there were white indentured servants, of course, that were also kind of like slaves, most of them were fucking, most of it was off the backs of black slave labor, right? They were doing a lot of the grunt work, developing America. And then fighting for freedom. Is that why you fought the Mexicans for freedom in 1848? And like, this land's ours now. New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, this shit's ours now. We're going to kill you for it. So in 1848, they kill people. Oh. They buy Louisiana, the Louisiana Purchase from France in 1812. From Napoleon, who's too busy fucking fighting out all of Europe to notice. Then they fight themselves for the Civil War. It's like, oh great, you granted the slaves that built your country freedom now. Then they're like, oh well, we can't have slaves anymore. Let's bring over the fucking, starving Irish from the British genocide, and then bring over all these coolies from Asia to fucking work our shit, work our fucking railroads. Oh yeah, those Chinese, they came over because they needed money. Yeah, like, why did they need to come to fucking America? You ever heard of the fucking Opium Wars? How fucking, the Ivy Leagues were built off opium money? Delano Roosevelt, all those fucking Boston mafia people, Irish mob, Jewish mob, Italian mobs in New York, all those mob bosses. They made money from being fucking drug dealers in America to the Chinese. That's what your fucking ancestors came here. That's how they made their fucking money. By drug dealing to China. And slave labor to fucking African Americans. and then taking fucking Native Americans' land, and then making the fucking Irish people make your fucking railroads. And what, you think you freed us from Japan? No. You fucking just wanted Japan's empire for yourself, so you staged a fucking false flag. It's all this fucking bullshit. Anyway. All this to say, no Asian American owes this fucking country jack fucking shit. We built the railroads. We built the fucking internet. That's fucking right. You know. That network, that DARPA network. Who's the one that laid the fucking track, the information highway? That's what we did. I think it was some fucking white VCs. I think it was fucking fucking Bill Gates, fucking hack. I think it was Steve Jobs. Fucking guys don't even understand how fucking technology is developed. It's fucking white people. Fucking goycattle whites. Maximum goy slop ever. Let's see. South Korea is now debating if she's too hot to go to jail. No. No one is too hot to go to jail. She should be executed. She should be fucking executed. It's not South Korea probably debating. It's probably like some goy slop white people being like, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't think Johnny Somali is getting 7 years just for that. I think they're using that as a legal pretext because Johnny Somali did so many other things that they don't have like a legal fucking precedent for. So it's like, oh, okay, well, if you did that, you know, because like the groping the comfort woman statue, whatever, that's really fucking offensive. But it's like, there's no real law for doing that because people probably didn't even conceive that someone was going to do that shit. So it was like, probably like, oh, well, we really want to fuck him up for doing that. And he did this other thing that we actually do have a law for. So, like, because let's be real. It's not like fucking anyone thinks in South Korea's legislature actually believes that Johnny Somali is a North Korean agent. They know he's a fucking troll. They're not retarded. They know he's a fucking troll. But they know that they want legal pretext to fuck him up. And so this law already exists, whereas there's no anti-groping comfort woman statue law, right? And so they know their citizens are fucking mad as fuck about the groping the things, the statue thing. They probably don't care that much. The average Korean citizen probably doesn't care that much about the North Korea shit because that's the stuff that the government cares about. But they know that they have to fucking nail this fucking piece of shit to the wall. And so they're like, oh, well, we have this law already, and we have literal evidence. He fucking filmed himself breaking that law. So, you know, it's just like, you are the dumbest, like, Johnny Somali is the dumbest fuck ever. It's like you gave them the fucking pretext to jail your ass. So it wasn't really like that they thought that, because like the intent behind that law is that it's like subversive. It's gonna, you know, it's giving North Korea like, you know, credibility, whatever. Nobody thinks Johnny Somali doing that makes North Korea look good. All right, nobody fucking, no South Korean legislator, no fucking South Korean judge or lawyer or citizen thinks that. But they know that it's a law, So if you do that shit and you're doing this other fucking bullshit, now you're going to get fucked. You fucked around. You're going to find out, you know? Did you do a search for the books on Naver? I'm not sure if it was Naver or some other site. It was one of those fucking Korean book sites. I'm not sure. I didn't look into it too much. Notice how they haven't made a movie on Kim Gu? My grandfather apparently worked for Kim Gu back in Seoul for a brief moment until he was assassinated. So I think he was working for like a few years. And then he told my father, I think, that everyone knew that Seokmin Rhee gave the order to take him out. I don't know. I mean, we all know that, right? Obviously. Well, with the help of AI, maybe we will make those movies about Kim Gu and Kim Il Sung. You know, with the help of AI, you can make anything these days, you know? That's what China should actually fucking do. Instead of, like, you know, using seed ants to, like, make fucking Hollywood goy slop, like, they should make fucking Kim Il Sung biopics and Kim Gu biopics. This is the actual history of what the fuck happened, y'all. You know, like in Kim Il Sung in the 1930s, fucking fighting fucking Japs. That's the fucking movie. You know, fucking bombing that station, that Japanese station. Boom. He's a hero. You know, that shit would get all of Korea being like, yeah, he's the fucking GOAT. Ellison just win. I don't understand. Wasn't that Netflix? Didn't Netflix win that shit? I don't even fucking know. Unks won't get called to fight. I guess that's true. But I don't know. I don't want to stay here anyway. It's like, I might as well go over to China. Go over to China. China. You know? It is indeed too late. I heard natives come from Asia a long time ago. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Hispanic people, I mean, they're not that different from us. You know, the more Hispanic you get, the more Indian you get, more the native you get, you're like, those motherfuckers got, you know, when you go to fucking Iceland, you know, when you go to fucking Alaska, you're like, those Inuit motherfuckers, they look Asian as fuck. Manifest Destiny. Exactly. Lol, you learned Puritans poisoned like 200 Indians at a peace dinner early on. Killed them by poisoned food. Standard practice. Yeah, everything that they say, you know, everything the fucking Nazis say the Jews did. The Nazis the white people did that shit too, okay? That's the thing about this fucking goy cattle, goy slop nonsense. They're like, oh, well, you guys did that shit. Oh, you guys did that. You know, it's like Nazis and Jews pointing at each other like the Spider-Man fucking meme, right? Meanwhile, all the rest of us are like, y'all both did that shit, you fuckfaces. We both think you're fucking pieces of shit. You're fucking Nazis or you're fucking Zionists. It's the same fucking shit. Don't try to, like, be this, like, innocent, oh, well, you know, I'm anti-Zionist, so, you know, I don't really have anything to do with imperialism. Shut the fuck up. You are fucking one of them. You're fucking white. That's what is actually the union of you fucking two, right? Fucking stay still. That's what pisses me off. But like, oh, using goyim is anti-Semitic. It's like, if I said to a fucking, you know, if I said to the Japs, you know, I don't know what the term they have. They probably had some derogatory term for Koreans, right? But let's say that term was gook, right? Because that's the derogatory term for us anyway, right? If I said the gooks are waking up, that wouldn't be fucking anti-Japanese. I mean, I guess it would be anti-Japanese in the fact that the power dynamic is like, I want to get this fucking Jap out of my fucking face, out of my fucking country. Then yeah, I guess it's anti-Japanese, whatever. But it's just kind of like, let's say Palestinian was like, the Goyim are waking up. That'd be totally fucking fine. That would be like, you know, it doesn't even have to be Jews. It would be Slavs. It would be Poles. It would be Czechs. It would be anyone that wasn't Aryan. It'd be like, the Untermenschen are waking up. You know? Just so fucking annoyed by white leftists and white rightists who can only think in their little fucking false binaries that try to deny anyone else of agency. It's like, oh, well, we're all fucking goy cattle or Untermenschen. We're both, you know, that's what we fucking are, like, to these people. But if you call yourself goy cattle, now you're anti-Semitic. If you call yourself Untermenschen, now you're, you know, fucking, I guess, anti-white. Or all this fucking bullshit that the fucking goy cattle Nazis say, you know. The Untermenschen are waking up, you know, the fucking, you know, Asians are waking up. They did that germ warfare shit in Korea. Yeah, they used fucking Japs Unit 731 shit. That they still deny to this day. This country was founded by cultists. It's going to turn super right now. All the Tonight Show will be fired because they are super left. Colbert is actually fired. Nobody watches late night shows anymore. CNN still goy slop, right or left. Yeah, nobody watches that shit anyway. It doesn't matter what's everything is fucking goy slop. Because everything is... That's the fucking thing. Jews and white people, they are the same fucking thing. For all intents and purposes, they have sublimated themselves into one thing. After World War II, and especially after the 6-Day War, they're just fucking one thing. They try to make it like they're two different separate moments of Nazism and Zionism, so that they can keep this fucking bullshit goy cattle fucking Untermenschen shit going. But the truth of the matter is, they're the same fucking thing. The whole thing about Zionism is to say to Palestinian, hey, if you're against us, you're a Nazi. That's the whole fucking purpose of Zionism. To fucking do this switcheroo, this Indiana Jones switcheroo, you know, the Temple of Doom, you know, switched the Nazi guy with the Palestinian, be like, see, it's still a fucking Nazi. And yeah, like, what does even fucking anti-Semitism mean these days? Without an effective power, like the last time that actually really meant something was in fucking white countries. Right? It's only meant something in white countries. In the non-West, it has no fucking meaning whatsoever. I seen this fucking report from Israel being like, China's growing anti-Semitism from 2021 to 2025, a report from Israel. I was like, you fucking retards. Did you know that Shanghai was one of the only places that took y'all in from the fucking Nazis? And now you're telling us that China is anti-Semitic? What? Because they didn't let Epstein in the fucking country? Is that why they're anti-Semitic? Because they banned Epstein. It's just, they're just making up all this fucking shit. They have no other argument but to say that if you are anti-Israel in any fucking way, shape, or form, you are a Nazi. It's like this. It's fucking like boy who cried wolf shit. That, you know. And it's just hilarious that they fucking try to use that shit on Asian people, especially East Asian people. You know why? Because they tell us to get over the Japanese stuff all the fucking time. All the fucking time in the West. They're like, China's so... Can't they get over it? Can't they get over... Why do they hate Japan so much? When Japan was like fucking infinitely worse, you know, like, you know, I'm reading about Japanese war crimes, obviously, right? And I write all about the fucking Nazis. You know, I made a tweet today. I was saying, wait, so you're telling me that all the Nazis did was work you to death, and when you couldn't work anymore, you were sent to the gas chambers to die? That's it? That's it? You didn't have fucking people eating you? You didn't have people fucking vivisecting you? Have live vivisection? You didn't have people making you rape your own fucking grandma or your own fucking daughter or all this fucking shit where you had to see that shit? You didn't have fucking bayoneting. They weren't bayoneting your babies in front of you. They weren't slicing your heads off in contests. They weren't fucking doing all that shit to you. That's all they did. They made you work till you died. That's it. I'm like, wow. Wow, and you're telling me that I'm anti-Semitic for saying goy slop? It's just fucking ridiculous. These white people, whether you're a fucking goycattle Nazi, Aryan, whether you're a goycattle leftist, you know, Anglo or whatever, whether you're a fucking Zionist scum Nazi, the fucking nerve. The fucking nerve. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I'm just sick of this shit. Like, go to your fucking, you know, like maybe your fucking Nazis, the fucking people who are neo-Nazis, you know. Why weren't you talking about that shit about Ukraine? You know? Actual fucking Nazis in Ukraine. Saying the most fucking anti-Semitic shit. Apparently that's not on your radar. Apparently that's like, oh, well, you know, it's not that anti-Semitic. But calling yourselves goyim, calling yourselves Untermenschen, that's a little too far. You know? We're not going to do anything about that shit. We're not going to do anything about, you know, Epstein raping little kids on islands. Not going to do anything about that. All this. We're going to say, you're being anti-Semitic. And that's the other thing, too. Right? It's like, so what? So what if I'm being anti-Semitic? Right? So what if I'm being anti-Japanese? So what if I'm being anti-black? Or anti-Hispanic? Or anti... You know, I could be all these things... But the minute I'm anti-Semitic, it matters. You know, plenty of people were being anti-Asian 5 years ago. Nobody gave a fuck. They still don't give a fuck. Nobody still gives a fuck. They tell us Japs, we're just being Japs, so just deal with it. That's what they tell us. And they tell us, oh, you can't say this word. This group must not be attacked in any sort of way possible. And yeah, obviously, I have Jewish friends. I'm not saying that all fucking Jews or whatever. I'm not saying all these fucking things. But what I can say is, like, when the Nazis were around, when you were like, oh, fuck the Nazis, fuck the Germans. No one was going, oh, well, not all Germans were, Nazis. Well, not all of them were bad. No, you were like, fucking firebomb Dresden. Fucking firebomb, whatever. They all deserve to die. The craziest part about that is only 38% of Germany voted for the Nazi Party. There was a large amount of dissent against that shit. But what did the fucking West do? They actually didn't prosecute a lot of those people. They just prosecuted a few big wigs at the top, obviously. The ones that, you can't get away with that, right? For being that on top, like fucking Goering, right? Can't get away with that shit, obviously. So they had to get those guys their due. But a lot of that, the second tier Nazis, a lot of the entirety of Japan's fucking shit, Hirohito himself, nothing happened to them. So it's like, what are you fucking even talking about, right? Where does the power behind anti-Semitism even come from? Right? It comes from the ruling class, the people up top, right? The people who were running the show in Nazi Germany, right? The people who were running the show in America during the Ivy Leagues when they made all the quotas to ban Jewish people from coming into their colleges, right? That was all your shit. The anti-Semitism that they faced never came from an Asian person. It's like if an Asian person was anti-white, right? Or a black person is anti-white, saying cracker, right? Or whatever. It's like, what effect does that have on the white person? The white person's like, okay, whatever, move on with my life. Right? There's no state-sanctioned violence that is happening to the white person, when the black person's like cracker or whatever it is against the white person. There's no like business that's like firing the white person if a black person is like, this white person can't work at this company. I mean, like, obviously cancel culture and all that stuff, that's a recent phenomena, and that's more whatever. It has to do with, again, fucking liberal white supremacy anyway. And that's a different thing altogether. But in general, it's like, so what? So what if even if an Asian person is anti-black, right? Let's say I was anti-black. What the fuck impact does that have on the average black person? See, the racism only has power when it is backed by a state entity, right? Obviously in the Nazi Party, that was very powerful because that was one of their primary policies. Get Jews out of Germany. That was basically their stated policy, right? Get the Jewish influence out of here, get whatever, right? That's why the Nazis actually supported Zionism, right? Because they knew that if they came out loud and says, we're going to kill all the Jews, then immediately the rest of Europe would be like, yeah, you're fucking crazy. We're not going to deal with you. So the Nazis are like, all right, well, what if we just got rid of all these Jews? And so they actually approved of the Havara Agreement with Zionism because they were like, oh, well, this is helping us get Jews out of here, That's what Hitler actually said. Like, we should keep this going as long as possible. Obviously, once the war starts, that's not really a possibility anymore. No one's really dealing with you in the proper way. But even before 1939, all those places, like America or England or France or whatever, they actually were like, oh, we don't want those people. We don't want those Jews. And a lot of that was due to fucking American Zionist British Zionists, they were actually blocking German Jews from coming to their countries because they wanted them to go to Palestine. They wanted them all to go to Palestine. That's what these fucking people don't even tell you, right? They actually were pro-Holocaust. Maybe they didn't know exactly that was going to turn into that, right? But they were specifically like, no, if you're leaving Germany, you got to go to fucking Palestine. You can't go to you can't come here. You know? It's like they were like the fucking mean girls of America. You're like, can't sit with us. You can't come here. They literally turned a ship back. A ship from Germany was coming to America. They were like, nah, you gotta go back. And you know what? Goebbels was like laughing about this. Goebbels was like, see, they don't even want their Jews. See, we're right. These other Americans, these English people, whatever, they don't want these Jews either. They know, right? That's Goebbels used that as propaganda, like to even further the Nazi propaganda. And it's just like, okay, let's say I'm anti-black or anti-Hispanic. If an Asian person is anti-anyone else, you know what happens to that Asian person? He just gets like fucking murdered by that group, like literally. Like I go into fucking Harlem and say all the anti-black shit, I'm dead. You know, I go to fucking, Eastern Chavez, say all this anti-Hispanic shit, I'm fucking dead. If I go anywhere and say all this whatever shit, I have no fucking state power. So what the fuck does it matter if I'm anti-Semitic, whatever? And the same thing in America, right? If you're anti-Semitic, what happens to you? You just lose everything. Look at Kanye West. That's what happens to you if you're anti-Semitic. There is no like growing movement of like Nazis, that's trying to put you in concentration camps. If they all turn anti, like, what are you fucking talking about? And like at this point, it's fairly obvious that Nazism itself, like neo-Nazism, in the first 20, 30 years of the Cold War, neo-Nazism did have roots. It did have, appreciable kind of like people trying to keep it alive or whatever, be like, yeah, Hitler's still alive, blah, 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 whatever. But by the end of the Cold War, especially like in the 1990s, once the end of the Cold War, once it seemed like Soviet Union was done, all those neo-Nazi groups, they became really fringe. Like neo-Nazi groups became super fringe, not in the mainstream at all. And you know what was the one place that was pumping life into that shit this entire time? Well, guess what? It was fucking Israel. Remember the 4chan? More people, like 50 times as many posts per capita were from Israel on 4chan than from America. Like, Israel is a place where around 10 million Jews live, right? Maybe not even 10 million Jews. It might be like, I don't know if there's some Arabic stuff in there too. But let's say it's just 10 million, right? America's 340 million people. 34 more times more people. And yet, there were 2.5 more times posts from Israel on 4chan than there were on fucking, And so the only reason why anti-Semitism even still exists in the Nazi form is because of Israel. Like, it would have just fucking died if Israel never fucking, was doing this the entire time. And how do you think fucking Donald Trump got elected from all this fucking right-wing shit in 2016? Fucking by 2013, 2014, that's when 4chan was infested by Mossad. It was all in the fucking Epstein files too. It's like nobody fucking, like, I'm fucking sick of these white leftists telling me criticizing Soros is anti-Semitic, saying Goy slop is anti-Semitic. Like, fuck you. I didn't have anything to do with anti-Semitism. I'm in fucking Korea. You know, I'm fucking Korean. Our entire civilization didn't even know Jewish people existed. You know, until like 1945. We had no idea y'all even existed until 80 years ago. And now you're telling me I'm fucking anti... Shut the fuck up. Fucking sick of this shit. Sick of fucking Westerners, whether you're fucking Aryan or whether you're fucking Jewish, just telling us what to say and what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to think, you know. It's just fucking nonsense, Goyslav. And that's why, you know what? That's why I've taken this more position of like, I don't owe this fucking country shit. You know? I don't owe this country shit. Like, there's no fucking like, oh, this country gave you X, Y, and... Yeah, well, the only reason it was able to give me X, Y, and Z is because it took that shit from all these other places. And B, the only reason I'm even fucking here is you fucking raped and pillaged my country 80 years, like 75 years ago. You dumb fucks. You know? Everyone treats Asian Americans like, oh, well, you don't deserve to be here. You know, it's like, what are you fucking talking about? You know, California's economy was built off the backs of eight. The only thing in this fucking country that is still producing value is still being fucking worked off the back of Asians. You know, the math Olympiads, you know, even the Olympics now. The actual Olympics. It's our Asians versus their Asians. It's none of you fucking white people anymore. You guys aren't even fucking pulling your own weight. All you guys do is make fucking goy slop. You know, you're fucking rentier-seeking fucking, you know, apps, you know, in Silicon Valley that do nothing but extract value from the actual infrastructure or small businesses in this country. Like, what do you even fucking do anymore besides Kang? All you guys do is fucking Kang about, like, how you built this country when you didn't fucking do jack shit. This is what I'm fucking, like, I'm just over it. I'm just so fucking over it. So fucking over white people with their stupid fucking opinions. Their stupid fucking, like, oh, well, you can't say that. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's fucking goycattle Nazis, like, coping because, like, now about Alyssa Liu and saying, it's like, you dumb fucks. What are you even talking about anymore? This is what you're kanging about? You're kanging about a fucking test tube Happa baby? I'm like, what is even your argument now? What are you fucking... Shut the fuck up, you fucking idiots. You're all fucking idiots. Anyway. Maximum Goy slop flight was delayed. Nothing has changed other than being critical or not critical of Trump. Phone battery low, no charger. Watch CNN at the bar. Gross. I saw in the movie Detective Chinatown the speech by Chow Yun-fat that no Chinese railway workers were in pictures of any of the pictures where the world... Yep, that's true. Anti-Semitism is low-key fake anyways. Talmudic Jews are deranged and trying to be ecumenical and is giving them leeway. Real anti-Semitism is troubles that the Palestinians and the rest of the Semitics face. Yep, exactly. Especially funny how, now that you mention it was a person who blamed North Korea, was an anti-Zionist Jew. Are you fucking serious? Are you fucking serious? You know what's funny? There's only really one anti-Zionist Jew in the past 200 years. You know who that was? That was Karl Marx. You know what's funny? He wrote a pamphlet called On the Jewish Question. I haven't read it through, but I kind of like know what it's a little bit. But what's funny about that pamphlet is that Adolf Hitler was like a huge fan of that pamphlet. He was like, man, this was beautifully written. If only it weren't written by a Jew. Yeah, Zionists called Karl Marx anti-Semitic. It's just exactly when everything is anti-Semitic, nothing is. It's the Hegelian negation of the negation of the negation. You know, when everything is negated, everything becomes negation of that negation. You know. Jews have Napoleon complex and main character complex ever since they killed Jesus. Well, I don't know about that. I would say their hatred towards white people is pretty well warranted as well. You know. I'm not letting fucking white people off the hook. You fucking kidding me? Fuck them. Fuck the Anglos. They're the whole ones who created this fucking mess to begin with. You know, don't get me wrong. Just because I'm criticizing Jewish people doesn't mean I'm team white. I'm fucking just as much anti-white as I am being an anti-goyim or whatever it is. They're the same fucking thing to me. I'm not differentiating them one fucking bit. Especially funny because now that you mention it, the person who blamed... Oh, yeah, I read that. China banned George Soros, too. Well... They're pretty smart then, aren't they? China has actual ethnic Jews too, lol. Kaifeng Jews. Your children are promised to us 30,000 years ago, hence banning Epstein visa is anti-semantic. Anti-semantic. I don't know if you meant to do that, but that's pretty funny. Most Americans don't even know about Japan's war crimes. High school history classes, yeah. You know, I grew up in a very New York liberal high school, so... I think we even had, like, Jewish holidays off. They just want to pacify us? Really? That's simple and obvious. Too much Hello Kitty up their ass. Operation Paperclip Black War Declaration. Those anti-Semitic Chinese took them in, though. Irony is powerful Jews like the Rothschilds, Jewish mafia in America and England, or among those blocking refugees from... That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about, Wi-Fi. The Zionists were working with the fucking Nazis the entire time. Because think about it from the Zionist perspective, right? Well, if you read my thing, you would already know about this, but... If you're a German Zionist, or you're an English Zionist, or you're a French Zionist, right? You're from the West. You're a Western European Zionist, right? Most of the Zionists before World War II were bourgeois, right? They wanted to make deals with England, you know, who's in control of the region. So England was in control of mandated Palestine, right? As well as a lot of the other parts of the Middle East. In the early 1900s, one of the reasons they even got into World War I was because the Ottoman Empire was in shambles. And they were, you know, it was dead man walking, pretty much. And so they were motivated both because they wanted to contain Germany, right? They saw Germany as a threat because if Germany got more powerful, it would block their passage from India and, you know, cause a lot of problems for the British Empire. Damn it. All right, 1, 2, 3. Fucking hell. Okay, so Britain had an issue with Germany they actually created MI6 in 1908 because they saw Germany's growth as a big threat. What if it took over the Ottoman Empire itself? What if it took over Austria? What if it took over all these routes in the Middle East? That was how Britain traded its shit, you know, like with agreements with France and all that shit. They traded their shit through India. India was their main source of income back in the day. You know, that was their crown jewel, so to speak. I mean, literally, too. Like, they took a lot of fucking jewels from India and made them into their fucking crown jewels. But not only that, what else happened in 1908? Well, there was an oil company that struck oil in Iran, or modern day, or I think it was Iraq or Iran, modern day, or back then it might have been called Persia, I'm not sure. But basically, they struck oil. And back in those times, the big two producers of oil were Russia and America. You know, that's the Rockefellers, right? The Standard Oil, that was in the late 1800s, and there was a lot of oil in Russia as well. So Britain kind of wants to hang on to its top position. You know, it sees America, you know, growing in strength. It sees Russia getting this oil as well. And now it sees Germany kind of growing a little bit too big for its britches. And so they have their eye on the Ottoman Empire, right? They want that territory because it's, you know, it secures their link to India. And there's a lot of this precious new resource called oil. Because still, back then, a lot of things were still being powered by coal. And so eventually, the powder keg is lit. Franz Ferdinand is killed by some Serbians. Serbians call in their Russians. Austrian calls in their Germans. And then Russian call in their French and British. And World War I happens, right? Everyone's fucking fighting. Because we all know they wanted that fucking territory. They're all pretty much vying for more territory, particularly that oil, right? Europe wanted that fucking oil, or England wanted that fucking oil. Everyone wants that fucking oil, right? It was the source of power in the future. So England, after World War I, it's in control of territory. It's called Mandatory Palestine. And so now Zionists, 20 years later, after, you know, Herzl dies, I think in 19 something or whatever. It might be Ches Wiseman by now. I forget. I'm not exactly sure about the order. The Zionists are like thinking, ooh, I see England has a vested interest in this area. What if we were to be the whites in the area, the rightful whites? Not only that, we'd have our own place, and we could be the watchdogs, you know? Because I don't know if you know how colonial empires worked back then. But basically, like, for example, in the British Raj, right? They didn't have, like, 1 billion English people running that shit. They took advantage of the caste system that was already in place. They systematized it and had Indians watching over lower caste Indians and so on and so forth. It became this, you know, hierarchical structure where you didn't need that many British people to maintain it. You just needed a few administrators to kind of like make sure nobody fucking got out of line. And they're like, hey, if Britain has those kind of like not that many white people, but like, you know, just colonial administrators in India being, you know, all governors and shit, and they get a lot of, you know, they're powerful and rich. What if we were like that for the Middle East? What about all this fucking Ottoman territory now that's under the fucking control of the British and French? What if we were that white colonial government, watching over shit, making sure these Arabs don't get out of line, and the Arabs don't get out of line, and secure all this oil shit for the British Empire that they want, and secure this territory so that it's a nice little link chain to India. We could be those white colonial people. That was how Zionism was started to be. Like, we could be their imperial outpost. So this was their mentality, right? In the 1920s, 1930s, hey, in order to do that, make an agreement with Britain, not necessarily that they're going to give us a sovereign state, but that they're going to help some of these Jews settle in Palestine, Britain was a good, it was pretty smart. It was like, well, we don't want to piss these Arabs off. We're not going to say that we're going to give them a state. We're going to try to play both sides, not really commit any either way. But what we really want is just a steady flow of this oil. We want British Petroleum, BP. That was one of these fucking companies that came out of this stuff during World War I. We want these oil corporations to keep this shit going as smoothly as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to say to these Arabs, we're not giving these Jews a state, okay? We're just letting them come here. They're just going to live here. Nothing's going to happen. And then to the Jews, they're like, maybe someday. I don't know, maybe not. Well, no, England's always playing both sides of the chess game, right? Ever since the Napoleonic Wars, in 1815, they know how to play a good fucking chess game, right? And so, when you think about it from the Zionist perspective, like the Chaz Wisemans of the day, whoever it was, you're thinking, you're seeing the situation in Europe, and you're seeing this crazy guy in Germany somehow get power, and his whole shtick is, we got to get rid of these Jews. We got to get rid of these Jews in Germany. We got to get rid of Jews in Europe. We got to move them someplace else. You're like, holy shit. That is amazing. Yeah, you're right. You are right, Mr. Hitler. We need those Jews out of Europe. We need them coming somewhere else, going somewhere else. Hey, what about Palestine? How about that? That's a pretty good idea, right? We want to keep this Hitler guy going. Maybe they didn't know that the Holocaust was happening. But as far as they were concerned, the Jews in Poland, most of the Jews in Poland back in the day, they were Orthodox. They were very, very firmly religious type Jews that, there were three conditions. I forgot what they were. Or there were three things that Jews were never supposed to do. I forget what they all were, but one of them was like, we'll never try to forcibly create a state in Israel. That's actually in their fucking, That's actually in, I don't know, the Torah, Talmud, something like that. So one of their actual religious texts, it was like, we will never forcibly create a state in Israel. So all those Jews in Poland, they were the Orthodox Jews who were firmly like, nah, we ain't coming to Palestine. That's not what we're supposed to do. They were being faithful to their actual Judaic faith. These are the guys that created bagels. That was a banger creation. Thank you, Polish Jews. And then the other Jews that were concerned were obviously in the Soviet Union, right? So there were 3 million Jews in Poland, and then, the rest of the kind of like Jews that died were like around 1.5 million to 2 million. They're in that other region in the Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, the Baltic states and the Soviet Union, right? We all know that the Soviet Union's position on imperialism in general was. So they're like, that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create communism. We're trying to spread the revolution around the world so that there is no anti-Semitism. We don't believe that we need to create a state in Israel to avoid anti-Semitism. You know, that's kind of just this weird thing you guys are doing just to be an imperial outpost for England. You know, so, you know, not to say that there weren't Zionists in the Soviet Union as well, but they got purged, right? They were kind of like, no, fuck you. Stalin was like, fuck y'all. We ain't doing that shit. And a lot of them were purged, right? But in general, the Jews in the Soviet Union, they were supposed to be about that shit, right? Because the Bolshevik Revolution, of course, banned and, legally banned anti-Semitism itself. You know, I don't know how much you guys know about Imperial Russia, but Imperial Russia was specifically anti-Semitic starting from like the 1880s. You know, they were the ones actually pogroming. Before the Germany, they were like known as the Germany of Europe back then in terms of like their pogroming, you know, especially Ukraine, right? There were a lot of Jews in Ukraine who were like, we ain't going back to that imperialism era where we were getting pogromed every day by Ukrainians. So Soviet Jews, this was obviously this is all pre-World War II, right? So those Jews, you had all those Soviet Jews who were anti-imperialists, and so they were anti-Zionists. You had all these Orthodox Jews who would never, ever support Zionism because they considered it heresy, right? Actual heresy. And then you had like average Jews in the Americas who weren't that wealthy or whatever. They would be like, why would I move to the middle of the desert? I'm fine in Europe here. I don't want to move there. It's not this developed place like this nice American home I'm in, like this nice British home I'm in, like this nice French home I'm in. Why would I want to go to a backwater, undeveloped area in the Middle East? It makes no fucking sense, especially in the 1920s, 1930s. So you're facing all this stuff. You're trying to create this project of Israel. So put yourself in the shoes of this Zionist, trying to be like, oh fuck, you know, like this Orthodox Jews aren't coming here ever. You know, these fucking Russian Jews, you know, these fucking commies, they're against our project ideologically altogether. And these rest of these guys, they don't want to fucking build this place for us. You know, they don't want to settle here where it's probably really dangerous, you know, uproot their entire life. How come they don't want to uproot their entire comfortable Western lives to settle in? Oh, wait a second. You're telling me this crazy guy from Austria is now the head of fucking Germany, and he's saying we need to get these Jews out of Europe into Palestine? Holy shit, that is amazing. Like, it just makes logical sense, right? Why the Zionists would love Hitler. When you actually examine the history, when you actually see these historical forces, you're like, of course Zionists would cooperate. Of course they would, you know, do the Havara Agreement. You know what the Havara Agreement stopped? There was a global fucking boycott of Nazi Germany. When Nazi Germany first started, there was a global boycott in 1933. And Goering was fucking like, oh shit, we're losing a lot of fucking export income. You know, the Nazi Germany didn't have a lot of fucking money to begin with. You know, they had to find some creative financing in order to sustain themselves. And in that beginning, they didn't have a lot of that creative financing in place. So they were in critical condition because Jews who are not aligned with Zion, there was a lot, like the people who were Zionists who were Jews was a very small percentage before World War II, like the overall amount of Zionists. So back then, most Jews, they saw this Nazi Germany thing as like, we don't want to fucking go somewhere else. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, fuck you, Hitler, right? Like, normally. Like, I'm not talking about, like, Zionists, the bourgeois Zionists who wanted Hitler to bring all the Jews out of Europe and whatever. I'm talking about the actual Jewish people, right? They were like, what the fuck is this Hitler guy? We need to stop this crazy dude from gaining any influence. He's, you know, like rightfully so. They were reminded of all these pogroms from before. But then the Avara Agreement happened, where they were like, hey, the Zionists were like, hey, we don't want this Hitler guy to go away. We like this Hitler guy. We need more Europeans. Why don't we make an agreement so they can survive? Not only that, we'll make this agreement so we can get some of these Germans to Palestine already. So they make this Avara Agreement with Nazi Germany in 1933, saying basically, hey, we will take these Jews into Palestine. We'll make them sell all their shit and then put that money into a fund. They get like 1,000 marks, you know, when they come to Palestine. They don't get shit when they come here. But what we'll do with the rest of their money is we will buy your shit. We will keep your economy running. We will buy all the shit you'll sell us with their money. That was the Avara Agreement. And guess what? Guess what Nazi Germany was selling at the time? Guess what they were making the most of during that time? Well, they weren't making commercial products. They weren't making, you know, McDonald's. They weren't making capitalist, you know, nice commercial stuff. They were making war armaments, right? They were making, you know, Panzer tanks. They were making machine guns. They were making, you know, all this shit for war. And so all that money, we're like, we'll buy this stuff to be used later in 1948, perhaps. And so, like, Nazis were like, oh, yeah, sure. See, we're fine. See, Jews. And then the Zionists told all their people, like, look, Germans are fine. They're not gonna kill us. They're not gonna kill us, guys. They're fine. See, they're trading with us. We're good. We're good, Jews. We're good with Germany. You know, you don't have to be that upset about them. And then they all bought it, right? The bourgeoisie in America all bought it. Did you know that Hollywood itself, most of the big studios by the 1930s, they were run by Jews, right? Eastern European Jews that came over in the 1890s, started all these Nickelodeons in New Jersey and New York, moved over to California in 1910s, and then started these big fucking things like the Warner Brothers. The Warner Brothers literally are four brothers, all Jewish. There was Lamel, there was, I don't fucking know. All the big things that you know were by Eastern European Jews. There was only one studio that held out, though. Fox, also a Jewish studio, was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this shit. But a lot of those other studios were like, you know, Germany is a big market. It would be sucky to lose that. You know, maybe this Nazi thing is kind of a fad. So, we'll just we'll just deal with these fucking Nazis. I mean, the Zionists tell us they're not that bad. They're doing business. They're not gonna kill us all. I mean, they're they just want us out of their country. That's fine. Just go to Palestine. Oh man. So let's just do business. You know, throughout the 1930s, some of these fucking studios, these Jewish ran studios, they were actually fucking signing shit with Heil Hitler. They were signing these fucking business, letters to fucking Germany with Heil Hitler. They were literally supporting the regime. They didn't, what the most fucked up part about that is? They didn't even make that much money off the German regime. Because Germany didn't want Jewish content in general. But the reason that they still dealt with Nazi Germany a lot of the time is because they wanted to keep those relationships in place. Just in case this Nazi thing is just a fad, it would be a shame to get rid of these agreements and then have to draw them up again with new companies, blah, blah, blah. We're already in the system. We just have to wait this Nazi thing out and it'll just go away. They'll become normal again. It's fine, And, it's like, yeah, I read all this shit, okay? I'm reading everything. I am reading every fucking thing under the sun. I know everything about the fucking Zionist Nazi alliance. It's people talk to me as if oh, well, you're just a fucking Nazi, or you're just fucking communist, or fucking commie, or blah, blah, blah. It's shut the fuck up, white people. I research white people. I'm a fucking expert on white people. I'm an Occidentalist. I'm the first, how they call, those fucking French or German or English academics who study the Orient. They're Orientalists. I'm a fucking Occidentalist. I've studied you fucking white people. I've put you in a fucking petri dish. I know exactly how all you fucking whites think. You know what I'm talking about? Fucking spend time reading this shit. You know what I realized after reading? I'm 30% of the way through this. I'm basically at the reason chapter now. I realize that most white people, especially Western Marxists, don't know even fucking what Hegelian dialectics is. They have no understanding of their own fucking culture. They're always oh, well, white people create all this culture. Yeah, who's playing fucking violin these days at Carnegie Hall? Is it a bunch of fucking American white? No, it's fucking Japanese and Korean people, all in the fucking orchestra. Half those people are Asian. We are literally the people keeping your own fucking culture alive, you dumb fucking barbarians. You don't even know how to keep your own fucking culture alive. You guys are so fucking retarded. Shut the fuck up telling me, oh, I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm talking about. Shut the fuck up. God. Just so sick of fucking white people trying to talk to me. Whether you're fucking right wing or you're fucking left wing, or fucking communist, fucking not. Where the fuck you are, you don't know fucking jack shit. You don't even know jack shit about yourselves compared. I know you better than you know your fucking selves. All these fucking Nazis coming to me when I call them goycattle Nazis, being oh, you realize that we made that term? Shut the fuck up. You realize that Hitler spit off Lenin and the Bolsheviks for his own propaganda, you dumb fucks? Do you know about that? You know all about fucking Hitler's life? No, you don't know fucking jack shit. Balfour Declaration, those anti-Semitic Chinese took them in, though. Irony is powerful. Jews like the Rothschilds, blah, blah, blah. Lol, pull your weight. What's pull your weight? If you don't work, you don't eat. So the British created Jeets, or Jeets had already existed before the British takeover. That is a complex question. Short answer, I'm kind of writing about it right now, but and I still have to study the British Raj and Indian history in general. I still have to study Chinese history in general too, but I'm even less informed about Indian history. Especially anything before the 20th century. I'm like way out of my depth on either. But I still have a little bit more of an inkling about Chinese history in the 19th century than I do about India. To that effect, I don't really know much about Korean history before, the 19th century either. Only like about, obviously like Isun Chin stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I don't really know that deeply. Admittedly, I still have a lot of research I need to do. I'm not an expert yet, or expert that I would consider myself an expert, but I still am an Occidentalist. That's the thing. Like, even though I don't feel like I'm an expert, compared to a lot of white people, I am more of an expert on their history than they are. Like, Dougie Kim is an anagram for Goyim kid. That's a little bit of a stretch with the EY goy. You should get rid of the U goyim kid. I want expecting this very good. What is want expecting? I guess you mean you weren't expecting this. Falcon Maltese backwards. I don't know who you are, but welcome to the show. Did you react to the Tourette's incident at the BAFTAs? I'm assuming you mean do I have a reaction to that? Well, I don't really have a reaction to it. I just more have an observation. One observation I made that I don't think a lot of people made was that apparently during the BAFTAs, there was someone who screamed, "Free Palestine." And my friend told me that the BAFTAs are actually on a 1-hour delay. So they're able to bleep out whatever they want to bleep out. But of course, those British people, they didn't bleep out the N-word, right? But they chose to bleep out Free Palestine. So it's just kind of like, that was an interesting observation. I feel like nobody even brought up, right? Everyone's like, oh, was he racist? Was blah, blah, blah. All this fucking back and forth. But that, you know what? That doesn't even fucking matter compared to what actually, that fucking censorship. It's like, wait, so you knew that he was going to say this N-word an hour in advance, and instead of censoring it, you just let it fly to cause all this goy slop, exactly the goy slop fucking back and forth bullshit that we saw about the fucking incident. Exactly the intent of what they wanted for this to be a fucking distraction. But when somebody yells "Free Palestine," oh, now you have the wherewithal to censor that. So that's my take on it. That is my take on that situation. You can't trust the Guelos, the white ghost. The most dangerous thing in America, Dougie with a library card. Actually, that is my one bourgeois vice. I like physical copies of my shit. I don't know. I like to own shit. I don't know. I don't like to like borrow things from the library because like, what if I need to? I make all these fucking. It's so funny because when I started reading like a lot, it was kind of like ostensibly for this research project. I originally was thinking I want to create a documentary where, because my theory in 2021, you know, with all the hate crimes happening and all this fucking propaganda against China, I was like, this is the same thing as like the Weimar Republic, like 8 years before the Nazis came to power, right? Like in 1925, Hitler starts his movement, you know, or in 1923 really was the beer hall putsch, but he's in jail and he writes his fucking Mein Kampf shit. And even though he's not really that popular at first, right? Because Germany's starting to recover from World War One in the mid-20s. The Roaring 20s, you know, economic times are good, and the Dawes Plan and all that stuff starting to find some relief for Germany. But then there's still this, you know, little bit of like anti-Semitic stuff that's starting to grow, this nationalism, all this stuff about France being on their back, about Versailles Treaty. There's all this kind of like sentiment that's still around. And during that, you know, 2020 period, mind you, it wasn't everyone, right? Obviously, not everyone was hate criming, but there was this like faction that was growing, that was significantly growing of this anti-Asian fucking shit where people were, and now it's becoming fucking full blown, right? All this shit that we see today about like fucking hot bus shit or immigrants being, you know, Eileen Gu or not appreciative of America, not patriotic, all this fucking goy slop about China and Asian Americans and all this fucking bullshit. Now it's coming out full force. You know, all this shit that I basically called 5-6 years ago. Now everyone's like, oh, you know, oh shit. Why is all these Asian women into white men all the time? Why are they writing about, well, let me give my stupid fucking white opinion about it, instead of listening to the fucking one Asian guy who's been saying the same fucking shit for 6 years, you dumb fucks. Anyway, I don't know how we got off this topic. Basically, oh yeah, so then I was doing research because I wanted to make a documentary and be like, the rise of the Nazis and the rise of anti-Semitism within the Nazi regime mirrors the rise of anti-Asian hate in America. Like Nazi Germany is the same thing as Nazi America, or Nazi America is the same thing as Nazi Germany, except it ain't the Jews being targeted. It's the fucking Asians, right? Because back then in Nazi Germany, the whole thing was, oh, these Jews. See, the bankers in England and America, they profited off this war against Germany. Oh, and the fucking Jews in the Soviet Union, they took over Russia with their communism. So they were both capitalism and communism, right? They're both like, you know, money grubbing and greedy and parasites, and they're also like taking over fucking Soviet Russia, and they're degenerating this country into nonsense with their communism, and they're going to try to take over Germany. Both sides are trying to take over Germany. We got to get these Jews out of here so we can free ourselves and take over the Soviet Union, take all their Lebensraum. You know, that's our shit. It's the same thing now with China, right? It's like, oh, those Asians, those fucking Asian American immigrants, they're coming here, they're greedy parasites. They didn't do anything. They all cheat on their SATs. They are worthless. They all copy us. You know, they're taking our shit. Oh, now they're trying to destroy our culture with their communism, this woke Marxism, even though like China has nothing to do with that shit. We're just gonna blame them anyway about this fucking cultural fucking narcissism shit. And you're like, and I'm like, this is fucking Nazism. This is fucking anti-Asian Nazism. So that's why I got all these books, and I was like, I need to fucking make a documentary about this. And then like I was like, oh man, I'm reading all this German shit. It was very interesting. And then like just buying more and more shit about not only the Nazis, but about like the philosophers now, like about Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Leibniz. I'm still have to read fucking Heidegger, Hegel, all this fucking shit. I'm still reading about the Soviet Union. I've been reading about that. I haven't even read a lot about Japan. I tried to read a little bit more about Imperial Japan as well, and I still have like 2 fucking biographies about Mao. So basically, I was like, oh shit. Well, this story is not just about Germany. This story is about like the synthesis of the entirety of World War II. When you see Japan and all of its fucking, the way it developed out of, Prussian military stuff. And not only that, how it modeled itself out of the British capitalist sort of model, and how it dealt with American imperialism and all this other stuff. You're like, oh, I'm seeing this kind of like, I'm seeing these fucking intersection of like these things that nobody can, like, because people think of World War II as like 2 separate wars, right? Like one in the Pacific, one in, Eastern Europe. But really, I started to see the entire picture. So it was like, now I want to make a fucking like documentary series. And so I started like dog-earing all the pages that I thought were relevant to that. So I'm ostensibly going to go back. There's a long-winded way of saying why I bought all these books instead of just borrowing them at a library card. I know it's just fucking retarded tangent I just went on. But that's why I have all these books at the end of the day. Because I dog-eared like a bunch of pages as I'm reading, like anything that I find or deem important. Anyway, sorry. When Dougie travels, he's an Occidental tourist. Well, I haven't been to Europe in a while, actually. When was the last time I was in Europe? Jeez. I don't think I was in Europe since 2007. 20 years ago. 2000, yeah, and that was in England, right? Did I go? Well, we went to the Greek islands in 2009 as a family. Maybe that counts. I went to Athens 2009. Where else did we go? But, after reading all this shit, I want to go back to London. I've been to London 3 times in my life. I want to go back to, obviously visit Karl Marx's grave and go to that library that both Marx and Lenin went to. I want to go to Russia, obviously, to visit Lenin's mausoleum. And then I want to go to Germany for a lot of places, Obviously, I do want to see all this stuff. Where the beer hall putsch happened, where all this stuff happened, where, Marx had his stuff, where Hegel was in Jena, or Kant was in Königsberg. I probably won't visit everything, but, there is a lot of stuff in Germany that I'm interested in. Obviously, Vienna, not just because of H-Man, but a lot of people went to Vienna back in the day. Actually, a close friend of mine died there, coincidentally. So, yeah, some places to visit in Europe but I just haven't had, I don't know. I just feel like it's not a good time to ever visit anywhere right now because I feel like the world is going to fall apart. I don't know. I'm just rambling again. Did you hear about the ex-NASA engineer in Houston that was falsely accused of sexual assault? Asian women and white prosecutors colluded against him, and after the charges were dropped, he is now suing. I did not hear about that, Carrie Lucy, but I will look that up for next time. That sounds very interesting. Did you hear that Alyssa Liu is an IVF designer baby? Yep. As well as her 4 or 5 siblings. I think they were all designer babies. I think the rumor in China is that he is gay, because they do have, he does have an Asian wife, right? So why would they use white eggs? Presumably they never did the dirty. I don't fucking know. It's a weird fucking story. And not only that, it's like, is Alyssa Liu that big of a, win for America, considering you banned Russia, your biggest ice skating competitors from, it was just like, it's like if, as much as I like him, LeBron or whatever, obviously I'm less liking him these days. But let's say the Lakers, all of a sudden, they're in the fucking playoffs, and somehow they get OKC banned from the playoffs, and they win a championship. They really win a championship? Or did they kind of have a little bit of a American artificial boost to get that W? It's a Doug Kim week on the TL for sure. That's right. Doug Kim is being vindicated everywhere. Why do you think communism found more fertile ground in Asia but not in the West? Well, as I said before, in the West, there was a lot of uneven development, right? You had other places that were more advanced, other places that were less advanced. So you had somewhat of confusion because there were different countries. It was almost like different countries were like petty bourgeois countries, like America is today, right? Like we say there's this class stuff, blah, 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 but whatever. But in actuality, and this started with the British, right? Because they were able to stratify the masses with imperialism. That was what they did with Ireland. They created a famine in Ireland and were able to use that to threaten British workers, being like, well, at least you aren't Irish, right? Now get the fucking work. That was what they were basically doing with Ireland. They were like, at least you're not them, right? British workers, now get the fucking work. Make me for more money. So because there was uneven development, there was also uneven academics. There was uneven intellectualism. There was uneven sort of stuff. I think the reason why it was so effective in China and in Vietnam and in Korea was because all three were, everyone there weren't that many rich people, right? There weren't that many landlords. There were like obviously there were, but like most of the people were fucking not just working class, they were destitute. Like back in Europe, like a lot of that Marxism was like, well, we need better hours. We need better working conditions. This working conditions aren't safe. And so concessions could kind of be made by the bourgeoisie or like unions and all this other stuff. And they could kind of control that shit. But after World War II, for example, now Korea's like, oh, well, these Japs are all these Japs are out of here. Now we're all equal, right? Well, and so a lot of people don't know this, but the land reform in North Korea was actually the most peaceful out of the communist countries because most of them were Yangban, so they've been landowners for generations, right? During the feudal period of Korea. But after the Japanese colonization, they were like, you know what? You're right. We're all equal. Just don't kill me. They kind of all knew. Yeah, yes, try to hold on to that shit. There's nothing backing you. Because like back then, all that power went to Japan, right? The Japan's administrative colonial government, which was run by South Korean like collaborators. And all the collaborators after World War II, they ran down south to where it was safe. And so the Yangban were like, you know what? we don't need a fight. We it's this land, my casa, a su casa. That was basically what happened in North Korea. So it was just kind of like, that was one thing, right? That was one aspect that made it easier for Asians. Like, obviously Vietnam with the same thing, right? They were slaves to the French, right? All these rubber factories, all these rice plantations, all these things that the French were using in Vietnam, they were all kind of at the same level. They were all fucking slaves, mostly, for the most part. Obviously, you still had some of those, colonial administrators who didn't want to fucking give up their shit. And those were in the South Vietnam. Those were the Catholic motherfuckers that needed to get got, and they got, But once they got, it was easy to now build this government. Be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like in the West, you have these bourgeoisie, you have this aristocracy, right, in Britain, right, that's been in power. Like, their families have been fucking rich for centuries, right? In Korea and China and Vietnam, you did have those families that were rich for, feudal period, but all of those were fucking broken up because of the French, because of the Chinese, because of the British, because of the Japanese. They were all colonies. And so a lot of those relations were kind of either broken up or given up voluntarily because they saw the writing on the wall. The other reason why communism, I think, had fertile ground in Asia was that, like I said about this, a lot of Western thinking or Western thought was basically made into this black and white thing, right? You're either good or you're evil, right? That was the Christian sort of black and white dichotomy. You're either going to hell or you're going to heaven, right? You either believe in Jesus or you're a heretic and you should die. So this brought a lot of like black and white analytical thinking. One thing is either true or it's not true. It's false, right? There's either true or it's false. There was no real, and this, a lot of people paid for that, right? Like Galileo, I think, or other people in Western society. They just had this black and white thinking thing where if you violated the thought of the time, you were kind of like considered wrong or bad or whatever. It was either bad or good. But I think in Asian, and even in the original Christianity, not the Western Christianity we're more familiar with, but I think in Eastern Christianity and in Asian, like Taoism, Confucianism, there's this idea that there's already this natural sense of dialectics, right? There's, the yin yang, there's like good infused with bad. And, I'm not, I'm pretending like I know what Taoism is about, but, it is this kind of like idea that not everything is just like all 100% bad or 100% good. And things develop in a natural way that sometimes seem contradictory, but once you understand the entire movement of that thing, you kind of understand the entirety of that thing itself, right? And that's kind of like how, I guess like the simple way I would say is like, say you're in a math class, right? And let's say you have an annoying autistic person like me in your math class, and there's this like fucking complex fucking equation on the board, and like whatever, I don't know, multivariate, multi-differential equation or some shit, I don't even fucking know. Let's say there's this linear algebra multivariate equation I don't fucking know what's complicated math anymore. And then let's say you had this really autistic guy, even more autistic than me, who could figure it out in like 5 seconds, be like, this is the matrix, this is the eigenvector, this is whatever, blah, 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 this is the integral, this is whatever. Like in 3 seconds, right? That would be more like, oh yeah, well, he is correct, right? He got to the right answer on the surface. But no one understands what that even means. As you're just like saying a tautology, like this equation is this result, without explaining how you got there, right? Like the dialectical thing would be like, okay, well, we needed to derive this, we needed to get this, we need blah, blah, blah. And in order to get that derivation, well, we need to go back into the theory of like how we got limits and like, you know, how limits came about through all this stuff or whatever, you know, how fucking, you know, blah, 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 quadratic equations, algebra, all this development of mathematics, how that all fucking fed into your result, right? That's more dialectic material. When you have dialectical understanding of something, you understand the entirety of the thing. You understand how it came about. And I think Western or Eastern philosophies in general are more like that, where Western philosophies are like more kind of like, well, that's not true because this is true. And then you'd be like, well, that's not true, but that's true. And like, blah, blah, blah. And you just go back and forth. And that's how you get fucking Republicans and Democrats. And they both don't understand that they are two sides of the same goy slop coin for over a century, right? And since the fucking 1887 compromise, or 1877 compromise, when they ended Reconstruction by giving the fucking Democrats, or Democrats gave the Republic through the election to the Republicans in exchange for getting rid of Reconstruction, right? So they've been like fucking the same thing for over a century, but because Westerners are too fucking retarded to understand that, they're like, oh, Democrat, Republican, oh yeah, you know. Whereas, you know, Asian people are like, what works? What gets the fucking job done? You know, when they came to America, they were like, oh, should we study this fucking liberal arts bullshit about, you know, fucking gender studies or whatever? They're like, no. When you study that shit, what jobs can you get from that? What jobs are you getting from that bullshit? You're getting no jobs, you dumb fucks. And study fucking math or science or some shit, you dumb bitch. They came to this country and they were like, who's making the money here? Our parents were like, who's fucking making the monies here? You know? They were like, well, doctors seem to make a lot of money. You can't get rid of a doctor, you know. The doctors are never going on a style. People aren't going, you know, this is what my mom told me. People are never not going to be sick. There's always going to be fucking business for doctors. And what's the other thing? You know, this country seems to need a lot of lawyers. A lot of business relies on lawyers here. So the doctor, lawyer, that became the top two things. Oh, these days, engineers. They're making a lot of money in this fucking computer shit, doing this computer shit. It wasn't really even until recently a lot of us got into like finance or like investment banking or consulting. That was more of like a recent turn. But like really those three, they were the like doctor, lawyer, engineer stuff, you know, or if you couldn't be a doctor, maybe you'd be a dentist, you know, next best thing, you know, or a nurse maybe if you're Filipina rather. Stuff that were like you're guaranteed to have a job, you know. My aunt is a pharmacist, I believe. I think she was telling my mom, like, you should just be an accountant. Stop this fucking sociology bullshit that you're studying right now. You just study accounting. And I was like, your sister is smart. You're not that smart. So it's just like Asians were like, you know, especially Ho Chi Minh, right? He was like, what is going to free my country? What is going to give my country autonomy against the French, right? The French are in our shit. You know, they're treating us like slaves. They're treating us like goy cattle. The French are making us goy cattle for their fucking, you know, Michelin. You know that Michelin star, whatever. Michelin was a tire company. Yeah, that was made off the backs of Vietnamese slaves. Did you know that? That French tire company that was built off Vietnamese slavery. Ho Chi Minh was like, how do we get these fucking French out of here, you know? So he goes to America. And he goes to he first goes all around. He goes to the French imperial places. He goes to Algeria, I think, as well, in the Middle East. Or Algeria's in North Africa. I think he goes to the Middle East as well. Kind of checks things out. Goes to France during the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, being like, yo, you know, he's like 29 years old, right? He's like telling all the people, yo, what about Vietnam? You know, 14 points. Yeah, Woodrow Wilson, that's a good plan. Every country needs their autonomy. How about Vietnam? Vietnam needs its autonomy too, right? It was fucking ignored by all the whites there, obviously. They're like, fuck you, you goy cattle Viet, goy cattle gook. That's what they said to him back in 1919. And then what else did they say to him? So he's like, fuck this shit. And then he goes to England. I think he's like seeing all their parliamentary shit, be like, is this a better system for us? I think he was like serving as a cook there, or like not a cook, but like one of those bus boys or something like that. Like a, you know, not the actual chef, but like in the kitchen in one of the hotels in England. It's like kind of like checking that shit out. It's like, well, this shit doesn't look like it's gonna help us. Goes to America, talks to black people there, goes to Harlem, New York City, talks to black people and be like, oh, these white people, they're not just they're not just making us Vietnamese slaves, they're making black people slaves, they're making everyone their slaves. So after that, he goes to Soviet Union, and then he listens to Lenin speak, and he's like, I don't even know what fucking Marxism was. I don't even know what fucking capitalism was. I don't even know what anything fucking was about Marxism. All I heard with these words by this motherfucker was like, this is how we fucking do it. This is how we did it. This is how we fucking won. This is how we get these bitches out of here. He was like, Lenin was the fucking man. So he spends the next decade or so studying in the Soviet Union. He was there actually when Lenin died in 1924. He wasn't around Moscow or anything like that, or was it St. Petersburg? I forgot where he died exactly. I think he might have died in like a Dachau or something, like one of his like homes, because he was sick, you know, this last year in 1923. But I think Ho Chi Minh was studying elsewhere in the Soviet Union, and he was sad. He was like super depressed when he heard that Lenin died. I think he was 34 at the time. And then, you know, once he felt like he knew kind of like what was up, he went to China. He went to, you know, all these other places where more communist movements in China were developing. He was like, oh shit, this is the way we do it, guys. Because he went to France too, right? He was one of the co-founders of the French Communist Party. A lot of people don't know that. But then he was like, these French motherfuckers, they don't care about Vietnam. They don't care about imperialism. They actually support their imperialism. Look at the dumb fucks that they are. So he goes to China, links up with Zhou Enlai, you know, and some of the Chinese communists out there. And he's like, this is my gigas, you know, these are my gigas. We gotta figure this out, our giga to giga, you know. And then, during the 1930s, though, they're all, embroiled in fucking conflict with Japan. So there's a lot of chaos that's going on. I think he was also on the run from French and British authorities. British actually didn't care too much, but French authorities wanted his ass for obvious reasons. They actually caught him in Hong Kong, I think, in the 1930s. And then somehow Britain let him go or whatever. I think they were trying to fuck with France at the time. I'm not sure. And he was able to escape. He was kind of like in that China-Vietnam area border for a while as well. And then World War II breaks out, obviously, with Japan. And so he starts working with the OSS, right? That's the American pre-CIA, like, secret intelligence. He starts working with them to combat Japanese people, right? Like, he's trying to get the Japanese people. And then he's also kind of like funneling the Japanese people to fight the French people as well. So he's like causing these people to fight each other for him. He's also like figuring out all this shit. He's literally dialectical material. He's like fucking on the job figuring out Marxism, Leninism, like his entire life for all this time. And not only that, once the Japanese are defeated, he's like, "Yo, why don't you all come to our side, right? Why don't you all come to my side? Let's get these fucking white people out of our fucking lands." So a lot of these former Imperial Japanese officers, they actually joined the Vietnamese to fight the French in 1945. They're like, yeah, fuck these French niggas, He like Jedi mind tricks the Japanese officers to fight for him, right? And so like he is like the purest form. Like Lenin was all the same way. He was like, whatever fucking works, we'll do that. If it starts to stop working, then we got to figure out why it's not working. We got to stop doing that shit. Figure out why it's not working, and then fucking find another strategy. That's basically Leninism, right? In 1921, right? They tried to invade Poland, and the Polish people were like, "We don't want that shit. We don't want that fucking communism shit here." And then Lenin was like, "All right, we out." Right. And so, he was able to adapt to whatever fucking situation came to him. I think Asians are able to adapt, the wisdom of Confucianism, right? The wisdom of Taoism, the wisdom of these systems of kind of like how to organize a structured, harmonious society. These sorts of concepts are well, like, embedded in Asian culture. How to not only build these harmonizing societies, but what to do when you face some issues. This doesn't come to China in some like biblical way or whatever. A lot of this stuff came through observation, right? China wasn't always this harmonious place, right? For thousands of years, there was a lot of wars. There was a lot of warlords. Sun Tzu figures out all this shit about war, but one of his top things he says is like, the best thing to do is figure out how to not fight. The best strategy is figure out how to win without even fighting. If you can figure that out, that's the best strategy. And so that's basically how Asians kind of like figured out what's the best strategy. Is it to, carry out grudges or whatever, blah, 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 just out of whatever? It's like, or is it to survive and to figure out how to best support your family, best support your people, best support your countrymen, And Ho Chi Minh, back when the Japanese imperial officers, they were supporting him, whatever. And when the French were trying to negotiate, they said, hey, you need to free those Japanese people or whatever. You know, Ho Chi Minh's like, fuck that. I ain't doing shit. Those Japs, they fucking work for me now, bitch. Because, like, you know, the Japanese, they were very good at conventional warfare. They knew how to, like, fight with modern technology. So it's like, I'm not giving that shit up. Get the fuck out of here. You know, he knew that whatever the West asked for was important for his success. And even when fucking Nixon was like, hey, let's negotiate a little bit here, he was like, fuck that. Get the fuck out of here. You know, he knew that when they're asking for something, that means that they can't get it because they've been trying to kill us for it for the longest time. So if they're asking for it, that means they're trying to trick us. They're not going to fucking do shit. You know, he learned through dialectics. Dialectics is like experience. He's experiencing all these things. He's learning from experience. All these fucking Europeans, all these Westerners, all these Americans, they don't actually know real struggle. They don't really know life or death struggle, right? This is kind of like the point that Hegel makes, actually, in the self-consciousness. You know, the first kind of thing in self-consciousness is the struggle between the master consciousness and the slave consciousness. And the master consciousness, which is white people, right? They think that they are the essential. They think because the slave produces something for them, they are the essence and they are the being for themselves. And the slave is just, they don't have any being for themselves. They are just my slave. They only live to produce. But through that production, the slave has fear of death, right? Slave is like, oh, if I don't do what the master tells me, he's going to kill me. So I got to keep doing this shit. But through the doing of this shit, he's the one actually making shit for the master to consume. He's actually building this shit. He's hoeing the ground. He's fucking, you know, working the land, figuring out the best methods, figuring out like all this fucking cultural shit, figuring out what's going on the ground, how things work, you know, like, oh, that didn't work, this works, whatever. When the master's doing shit, there's no stakes to it. There's no like life or death. Oh, if this doesn't work, it doesn't matter. I can move on with my life, right? But it thinks that it makes all this fucking theory, which is Trotskyism, right? It makes all this theory in its ivory towers. But that theory has no content. It's void of content. Why? Because it's never really been tested, or it never needs to be tested, right? It just has to be all academic sounding and all correct sounding. But it's never put into the field. It's never tested. So all these fucking Western communists, they're too comfortable in a way. They're too comfortable to really understand what actual communism is, you know, because they you know, even back 100 years ago or 150 years ago, all these communists were doing were like, oh, well, maybe we should fight for better living conditions and better whatever working conditions and less hours. And, well, you know, like, we're still doing pretty well in this industrialized capitalist world because of imperialism. All we want are better hours, you know, so we don't feel as shitty anymore. But for Asian people, it was life or death. It was like, do you want to be a fucking slave making fucking tires for Michelin people, fucking Michelin companies, so they can make their fucking retarded guides about food and be like, ho ho ho, I am French, I know culture because I am Michelin star rated restaurant, ho ho ho, you know? Do you want to keep that existence, or do you want to fucking fight for your life or for your freedom? You have nothing to lose but your actual chain. You know, like Marx said, you have nothing to lose for your chains. Well, for the Westerner worker, that wasn't 100% true, you know. It was only kind of like conceptually true. It's like, 10-hour workday, 8-hour workday. Yeah, it's kind of a good deal. For the fucking Vietnamese guy, it was, do you want to fucking make goy slop your entire life so that some French fucking piece of shit can be like, ha ha ha, look at this foie gras that I am eating, and I am so fucking thrilled, you know? That's why Asians win in the end. I don't know. Did I explain that well, Hank? 12Z7W. Look up Eric Sim. He's an Asian man who falsely accused. Okay, Eric Sim. I'll look that up. Asian cultures prioritize balance and harmony. Western cultures prefers diametric extremes. Lol. These my chiggas. That's right. Thank you. Thank you for what? Do nothing, win. Try and make one's enemy your friend somehow. Exactly. You know, that's what Chinese communism, you know, all these fucking, you know what's funny though? You know what's funny about the Nazis, when they blame Jews for doing all this shit, whatever, blah, blah, blah. The reason why that kind of like was a lot more effective than anti-China racism today is because they were kind of like participating in Western imperialism. It wasn't like the Jews were some like innocent people that weren't, you know, profiting off what was going on. Not to say, obviously, I'm not saying like I'm an anti-Semite, blah, blah, blah. I blame obviously both Jews and Aryans or Anglos for fucking imperialism. But what I'm saying is like when they try to do the same shit, the Nazi shit on Chinese people, it's like, wait a second. All they're doing is making cool shit. You know, maybe the actual the fucking boomer goycattle are gonna fall for that shit, right? Because they've been fucking boomers their entire life. But the Gen Z kids and the younger kids, they're like, wait, TikTok, that shit used to be really cool and awesome, and now it's fucking goy slop. You know, and now you're telling me that China is trying to kill us all or whatever. Wait, but China hasn't gotten into a war since 1979. China just makes things. You know, the the cognitive dissonance is piling up because China's like, yeah, we just want to work with you. You know, that was the whole Belt and Road Initiative. It's like, you know, America and the West tries to call it neo-imperialism. You know, like the hypocrisy is out the fucking wazoo. Everything they're saying about China is like infinitely worse, right? Like the fucking Uyghur genocide, and then we see a fucking actual genocide in 4K. They like tell us that there's a Uyghur genocide with these fucking satellite photos that nobody fucking believes. It's just like retarded nonsense. You know? All this fucking shit they say about China, like, oh, they're harvesting organs. It was like, well, we have actual evidence that Israel's been doing that to Palestinians. You dumb fucks. It's like the hypocrisy is just piling the fuck up. So, yeah. China's method, or China, yeah, ever since Mao pretty much ended the Cultural Revolution in the early 1970s and was like, all right, we ain't doing this shit no more. We ain't fucking spreading communism. We got to just fucking build this communism in our own country. That's what Deng continued, right? It's like, don't get me wrong, though. We're not going to sleep at the wheel. We're not going to, you know, not make our military shit technologically advanced in case y'all try to try it. But at the same time, we ain't trying to fuck y'all up right now either, you know? We're just getting ready in case y'all want to start shit. If you don't want to start shit, we're cool. But if you want to start shit, we learned from 1840, right? We learned from 1860. We learned from 1899. We ain't fool me once, right? China's like, fool me once. We ain't falling for that shit fucking, you know, we learned in fucking Korean War. You know, we learned all these fucking times. We ain't falling for that shit again. All right? It's like a Mexican standoff. You don't fucking put down your guns. It's like Americans like, put down your guns, while they keep going like this. And like China's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. You know, like, you know, Iraq, Syria, you know, all these other places, they might be like, yeah, okay. Iran, even Iran, you know, they're like, oh, okay. And then they get shot in the fucking face. Fall for it again award, right? But China's like, no, we keeping them up right here. Right here. Mexican standoffs happening still. Foie gras is disgusting. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's pretty tasty. Obviously, if you think about how it's made, yikes. You know, all this shit about dog eating, about Asian dog eating, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, the French are pretty freaky too. Eric Sim, the baseball player. Engels names the Rothschilds numerous times. Oh, interesting. I have to read more Engels, to be honest. I have to read more Marx, to be honest. China doing debt traps in Africa. China's doing the debt traps. They're debt trapping Africa. Black people don't know what's good for them. What are they doing? Even though our debts are even fucking higher than China's debts at much higher interest rates. But what are the Chinese up to? Every accusation is a confession. Exactly. Man, I have been talking for 2.5 hours. All right. If there's anything else, been talking for a long time. Anything else? I'm going to end this now, unless there's anything else. I'll look up the Eric Sim thing up next time. I'll see what's going on with that. China is setting a goy trap. Exactly. Smash that anti-Semitic like button. Smash the goy cattle. The goyim must remain asleep. Goy cattle. All right. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Later. No worries.